All right.
We're live.
Welcome, Raei Bridges. So delighted to be with you for a little bit of time and to for you to share some story about Circle and how it is impacting what you're doing right now. And very, very grateful for your organization, for the work that you're doing, so aligned with equity and justice. So So let's start and just tell us a little bit about who you are and how Circle has emerged in your life.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So I'm Raei Bridges. I use they, them pronouns. And the first time I was introduced to a circle practice or a circle council or a space where circle was held with intention was when I participated in a rite of passage quest with folks up at Wild Mountain. And that was the first time that I had experienced the practice of mirroring and being seen in a way that was just so life-changing. And I can't imagine it happening any other way but in that that in that space, of all of us sitting in circle together with the altar in the center. And um yeah, so that was the first time that I was introduced to it. And since then, it's just been an integral part of when I'm in with holding workshops or spaces that I'm in, just the way that it brings people together, whether that's through conversation or just time, around the fire. And it's very clear that being in a circle and being able to see everyone in that way is like a natural part of what we as humans are drawn to. It's like a way that we connect that's so ancestral, I guess I'll say.
Mm. And the term mirroring, I'm not real familiar with that. So can you just describe what happens in that process? I think I know, but I'd
Yeah.
like to hear it from you.
Yeah. So mirroring, I have only experienced it through the lens of a rite of passage. So someone will go out and have, a 4-day solo where they are participating in ceremony. And when they return, we sit in a share council and the person shares their story. It's like a storytelling moment. And the practice of mirroring is when you have two guides, maybe three guides who know your intention and why you're going out onto the land, they know what you're bringing with you. And when you return and they hear and witness you share your story, they're able to mirror back to you the lessons, the magic that is like within that story in a way that can be so overlooked when it's just you reflecting on that experience yourself. And so it's this way of being seen that is so powerful.
Mm. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And, so tell us a little story about the Rusty Anvil and the work that you are doing in the world right now. How did that come to be?
Hmm. Yeah. So the Rusty Anvil is a platform that connects folks of color to nature. And we do that through mindful wilderness trips. So that looks like backpacking trips and ancestral skills workshops. And so that's looked like fire workshops, friction fire workshops. This year we'll be doing some basket weaving workshops. And yeah, I started the Rusty Anvil and started the forest immersion program really because I had my own experiences of being in wilderness spaces and never quite feeling like I fit into the space, or that there was a space that could hold the complexity of what my experience was and the different intersections of my lived experience and how it allowed me or didn't allow me to show up in that space. And after having or being in conversation with other folks in the community, recognizing that it was a similar shared experience, and so it really just became clear that having a wilderness space that teaches these survival skills or as we refer to them as ancestral skills, having a space that can really hold, just like the depth of what a lot of folks of color are arriving with, and without there being any sort of level of like competition or folks having to know things or to be respected or feel like they belong in this space. And so it really just became a place and a space for folks to just connect with nature and just show up as they are. So we've been running the BIPOC Forest Immersion Program for the past 2 years, and that is a 4-day backpacking trip in the Green Mountains of Vermont. And it is a very simple introduction into backpacking and camping. So we get a lot of folks who've never backpacked or who've never camped. And it's a really sweet introduction into both of those things while engaging in forest bathing activities and meditation and journaling and very intentional movement and sitting in circle and sharing stories and sharing reflections and things like that. And so that's been a very fruitful program that we have, and just what it's been able to offer folks and the connections that it has been able to make, or the connections that have formed from folks in that space.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a good segue into, do you have a story of a particular circle or maybe a combination of circles and what are the components maybe that you used to set the sacred space, and maybe some learnings or insights that you've gotten along the way, along the journey?
Yeah, I think the moment that comes into mind was during the August immersion last year, and the space that we hold, like the first day of the program, is or was in the process of potentially being sold on the market, and it was this very complex situation around this land, and this land being indigenous land, and just the complexity around having it being sold off and what that meant for our community. And there was a moment during the immersion when all of it was happening where we sat together, and we had our altar in the center, which we had set the previous night, and we sat together and we talked about like what that meant for us, whether that was for us as folks who, like, the folks who live here and caretake the land, or for folks who come through in programs, and just what that means for our community and that in that experience historically. And it was a really beautiful space where everyone got to share their concerns around what was happening, and folks were crying and sharing. It was a very emotional space. And I think for me, what my takeaway was from that moment and that experience, and being in that space with other folks, really was just the level of vulnerability that's able to be present when you create that space for it to exist. And I think sometimes when we're running programs or we're in this like space of business, I think that the culture that we live in, it doesn't allow for that vulnerability to always to coincide with like doing the work or doing the business, the whole capitalist side of it. And so it was just a really beautiful moment of like, we're really all here with this shared experience, and we're able to talk about it and break it down, and show our emotions around it, and it can all be held, and we can all like be there to support one another. And then we can continue and go out into the woods and like continue with this program, having had this like really beautiful and intimate shared experience.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm really hearing the piece around in the culture in which we live, and how it's quite amazing to me that at times one is told you can't bring your whole self to
Yeah.
those kinds of business meetings or whatever. And how can you leave part of yourself behind? That's always been my question.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, well, thank you so much for sharing about this. It's the Circle Way. We are so excited about the work and very grateful for the work that you are doing, because we are very committed to expanding the use of Circle,
Mm.
particularly into BIPOC and to LGBTQ
Mhm.
spaces. So having the privilege of being connected and in relationship with you is very gratifying for us. And so any last thoughts you'd like to share about?
I just want to also express my gratitude and appreciation for the support that y'all have given us. It's been really, really helpful. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Ray.
Yeah.